Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 359, recorded live on Saturday, November 15th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have Steiner Davion.
Hello. Glad to be back.
Welcome back, sir. We also have returning Ash.
Greetings, everybody.
You may remember him from this is his first time actually being on the actual show, but he was on the Guild Feud, which we aired last week, as well as the Players Council episode a few weeks back. The screenshot this week comes from Botolina catching a great sunset in Three Barrel Cove, the 197th screenshot of the week. It's a very pretty shot. You can get a lot of really nice, pretty shots in the game. It's a lot of fun to see those. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Google Plus Hangouts, YouTube, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably either be recorded or will be live on Thursday or Friday because of my strange work schedule next week. Still trying to figure out what that's going to look like. You can stay updated by following us on social media pages or the website DDOCast.com with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we have some news about Update 24, a glimpse into Update 25, and then for our roundtable this week, we're going to talk about Zerging. We'll give you some tips on how to do that more effectively and more successfully. We will start with game news. The kind of first thing to note, there's been some login and server problems both Friday and today, although I was not horribly affected by that, other than the fact that I think we got 30 seconds warning that the servers were coming down, which was convenient for us because we literally just finished a Deathworm run. I picked up my end reward and then got a 30-second warning that the servers were closing down, which was probably about the nicest timing I've ever had on a server notice. I know some folks in my guild have been having trouble getting logged in throughout the weekend. And the servers are down for, 2 hours, 3 hours? It was a fair bit Friday night. Kind of prime time, at least in terms of my time zone. Phone support news. The holiday season is right around the corner, and with only 2 weeks left until Thanksgiving, they wanted to let us know that they're going to be adjusting some phone hours. The support phones will be closed for Thanksgiving and the day after, which is November 27th and 28th, for those that are not in the U.S. They will also be closed on the 1st of December, the 16th of December, the 24th and 25th of December, and the 31st and the 1st, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And they also mentioned that in the case of snow or other, it's the winter and Turbine is in the northeast part of the U.S., and they do get snow. Now, I don't think they're going to close down if they have as much snow as would shut down Seattle, which is like an inch. But, Steiner, you kind of live out in that area. Things start shutting down about a foot or so of snow?
It usually depends on the timing of the storm, but yeah, if they're projecting in the vicinity of a foot, then I would say the governor will probably recommend businesses send people home. So
yeah, just be aware. If they get snow, they might shut down the.
You gotta be from Wisconsin. We don't shut down things in Wisconsin until it's 10 feet deep.
Which it almost is, right? You guys
Just about
this week. We're hearing some of that. I have a lot of family in Minnesota, so I kind of half pay attention when that comes up in the news. And the central part of the U.S. this week got hit pretty hard with snow. I think they were saying 2 to 3 feet in Minnesota, Wisconsin area. So winter's here. It's not coming. It's here. Let's see. Some news on kind of the Paladin Barbarian front. They're talking about balancing Paladin and with the Barbarian. This is kind of in the Barbarian discussion, was about the Paladin. They're talking about having the spell Holy Sword lose its +1 weapon damage.
bullshit. Sorry.
The thinking is that once Paladin loses that extra +1 weapon and they run out of smites, the Barbarian will pull ahead, both because of the extra cleave abilities and because it will be ahead by 10 melee power. However, having said that, the best solution, because there's a lot of debate about where Barbarians and Paladins are in the scheme of thing, is to go onto Lemania and check DPS on top builds. So, have at that. Let's see. Regarding update 24, this is going to be in 3 phases because there's a little. I cut a little paragraph, so I'll read some of that, and then there was an announcement from Knockback, and then it hit live, and as part of that, they released release notes for. Or sorry, it didn't hit live. It hit Lemania. So update 24 is on Lemania now. So we have release notes to go with that. So it'll kind of be in waves and chunks with that. To start, Update 24 will include Barbarian Enhancement Tree updates, along with 4 quests, new festival cookies, which will be changed as they do every year. And there will also be a bunch of bug fixes and general improvements that will be in the release notes, which we'll cover in a minute. So that was kind of just a general statement, I believe, from Jerry in the middle of the week. And then, on top of that, Knockback said... he kind of said hi and gave us kind of a look into the future, starting with Update 24. Update 24 will be previewed this weekend, which is already up. First up in Update 24 is a new content pack, Heart of Madness. The planet of Zoriat is encroaching on Eberron once again, and the result is 3 dungeons full of Zorian insanity. Both the Lord of Eyes and Lord of Stone are back, as well as some other fan favorite characters. Hint, one of the dungeons is named Fashion Madness. The centerpiece of the pack is Terminal Delirium, the follow-up to 2 of the most popular dungeons. It would be Delirium and Acute Delirium. Once again, you'll be returning to the Sleeping Spell Inn, and once again, you'll be seeing and be turned into some very unusual things. It will be challenge rating 18 Heroic and 26 Epic, and will be 450 Turbine points and free to VIP. Also, coming up to 24 is the Forgotten Realms dungeon theme to tie in with the Wizards of the Coast Tyranny of Dragons storyline. You'll infiltrate a Cult of the Dragon base for the trail of the fabled White Dragon Mask, the Mask of Deception. Will be sound rating 16 on Heroic and 30 on Epic, and is free to everyone. Yeehaw. Let's see if it's a raid or not. It kind of implies that it's not, but it is challenge rating 30, which is only raids, so... I don't know. Well, you guys want to chime in on that portion really quick?
I wish it was a raid, but everything I've seen so far says it's not going to be.
Yeah, my guess is
it's not raids.
So.
Yeah, I think raids are always generally preferred to anything else, but we'll take what we get.
I mean, it would be nice to have another Forgotten Realm raid.
Yeah, just think about that. We have 3 right now, don't we? 1 that never gets played, though. So
there was that. So what happened to Anorak? They had mentioned Anorak as one of the places they wanted to go in 2014. Obviously, we're not going to have Anorak in 2014. Why the change? It's tempting to blame all of the Zorian madness, but the truth is they've been listening to what excites the players when it comes to D&D settings. They still may make it to Anorak eventually, but don't expect it anytime soon. It's a long walk from Cormer. Instead of that, they're going somewhere cooler instead, which they teased with future plans and update 25. What kind of cool things led to the detour away from Anorak? One of them will be coming in update 25. Since the Haunted Halls of Evening Star was received so well, they decided to adapt another classic pen and paper module to DDO. And which one, you might ask? The Temple of Elemental Evil. Yeah.
Woohoo! Temple of Elemental Evil. Who cares about update 24?
Right.
Please skip right ahead to update 25. All right. They were creating their own version of the original classic Temple inside DDO, which will be excited about adapting one of the most famous modules in history and pen and paper history, and the hope that we're excited as well. In the meantime, though, we had a date with Insanity. Let's see. Just kind of some additional info about it. Temple of Elemental Evil is a classic dungeon set in another world. We access magically and directly. The epic version will be level 30. And the heroic version
This
will
is
start
awesome.
at level 7.
Yep.
Original was level 1 to 8. They won't be creating the villages as part of the elemental evil temple. It makes them sad as well. However, the estimation of the time it would take to run that pre-content was very low, and the development time estimates were so high they didn't feel additional play experience would be worth pushing the update out by months. Instead, we'll get right to the heart of the adventure. The temple is very large, and they want players to have a reason to explore it. Even on subsequent runs, they want to find a fun system to reward exploring the temple rather than just running the most efficient path to finish the quests, and plan on having some rewarding optional objectives that randomly spawn and give out good XP and treasure. And just to kind of throw it in there real quick, the new event will make its live server debut in 2015, although they plan to give it a preview during the Update 24 preview cycle. Okay, Temple of Elemental Evil, go.
Well, I just little things. The idea of level 7, one, keep to the original, but also there was a big push on having an iconic D&D dungeon for new players. So if someone tries a game out, they can jump in and immediately see this iconic dungeon that they've been playing since the early 80s when it first came out. But that was the idea in 7. The other one, and not really giving anything away, but the Temple of Elemental Evil is probably one of the largest dungeons outside of the, Undermountain and stuff like that out there. So there has been some chatter on whether they're going to do it as one quest or multiples to cover all the different areas of it, which should be interesting.
Steiner?
Just to follow up on that last comment there, I personally kind of hope that they do it as like multiple quests, just so that we're not getting, just like one quest in there, in that update. I'd like to see it spread out a little bit. And Haunted Halls is great in the fact that you can go through it really, really quick, but you can also spend 2 or 3 hours in there if you really wanted to, which is kind of a downfall to really exploring that quest.
I don't know if I call it a downfall. I remember for the first night it came out, a bunch of us went in there, did a Haunted Halls with a classic D&D party. And I think we, first one we ran into the Cobalt Gatling guns and people died was fun, and it took us, 2 hours to get through there. But it was probably the most fun I had in D&D in a long time.
Right, but I'd like to see that, 3-hour quest kind of work up into chunks so that if you only have a little bit of time or you get hung up on something, you can still make some progress on it.
Oh.
And not lose, where you are.
Agree. Yeah, the first time through, it's great to spend 3 hours in there. Times 10 through 30, not so much.
Right. This new plan of having rewarding optional objectives and that randomly spawn and give out XP and treasure, just for the love of God, don't have it tied into like some kind of collectible ingredient thing where you get to turn them in for something. Just give us the random drop of the loot, not some new piece, some new in-game currency, essentially.
No,
they did pretty good with Haunted Halls. I mean, there's an upgrade system to it, but it's pretty reasonable. The stones are very predictable about where they drop, so it's not too hard to get to them.
Right.
I will say, I never really played modules at all. We kind of always came up with our own stuff when we were playing pen and paper. Partly because I was cheap and I never went to buy stuff, and partly because I never generally had trouble coming up with stuff to play or to kind of have the group do. However, I will say that I believe, along with D&D Next, Edition 5, I seem to remember hearing that they are going to release kind of an updated version of Temple of Elemental Evil in 2 parts. There'll be one. I'm trying to remember. I think it was on the DDO News, Players News, the Players Alliance guys. They were talking about it. That's where I heard it. But so I think this kind of ties in with what Wizards of the Coast is doing on a larger scale as well, which is kind of fun.
That'd be good. I know they did it for 3.5 too, but it wasn't an official TSR Wizards type supplement though.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a D20 license.
Yeah, I think they're planning on releasing the releasing it officially as one of a few pieces that they're going to release, or storylines or campaigns settings that they're going to release. With that, we can get to update 24 release notes. And just kind of so there's new quests which can be found in the Enclave of the 12 for the new Tyranny of Dragons quest. You'll find an NPC across the bridge in Evening Star, not far from the entrance to Stormhorns. You can also you can find glamored weapon auras in the DDO store, and they did conduct a character wipe. So just be aware that you may need to copy new characters. Here we go through the release notes. We will do this somewhat quickly, and I'll skim through some of these, hopefully. Maybe not so quickly, but I'm not going to read everything. We'll link to the release notes in the show notes. Let's see, new quests. Mirror of Glamoring. Weapons can now be created using the Mirror of Glamoring. Note the item from which the cosmetic copy is being made from is not consumed nor altered, just like everything else. They will be bound to account, and anything that has special racial requirements will retain those special racial requirements. The reason they do that, by the way, is because the models don't always. Some of the stuff is model specific. So if it goes to a different model, a different racial model, things can get a little funky. Mirror of Glamoring can be purchased in the DDO store. It can also rarely appear in daily dice. The Mirror of Glamoring will make a copy of the base look of a weapon and will retain the particle effects. The weapon cosmetic will only display on your character when you are wielding something of the same combat style, which include one-handed, two-handed, quarterstaff, great axe, crossbow, repeating crossbow, bow, rune arm, orb, and shield only. Hand wraps and thrown weapons are not able to be made in cosmetics. I'm not sure why anyone would think you could make a cosmetic hand wrap, but there you go. A glamored weapon aura can be used to create a cosmetic look on a weapon, such as flaming. An aura recipe also exists that allows someone to remove the visual effect of their weapon, such as flaming. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I'm sure if you go play on Illuminati, you'll figure it out. Glamored weapon auras do not function on bows, crossbows, or repeating crossbows, which is more or less true on live, I believe, other than the Thunderhome shadowy effect. I think it's the only one I really ever see. Feel free to stop me wherever you guys want to jump in.
I was going to say, I think the reason with the hand wraps is I don't think they're technically considered weapons.
Well,
you don't see them anyways.
That hand wraps have been bugged for everything anyways, so...
Yeah,
anything the hand wraps, it'll break the game, I'm sure.
I'm sure whoever was making the Mirror of Glamour was like, okay, when we get looking at hand wraps, every time we touch this, it breaks. Moving on.
I just want to turn my Falchion into a Great Club of the Skag. That should be a lot of fun.
You should be able to do that. That's yeehaw. The Great Club of the Skag is a pretty fun weapon.
Crazy.
It's a lot of fun if you have a half orc or a warforged, because the weapons kind of scale to size, and those models are bigger, so it gets a little bigger even so. I think the Great Club of the Skag is probably the largest weapon in the game.
I think it, yeah. It's a treat one.
Some fun little notes here. The airship captains now give players the option to be dropped off in the Hall of Heroes in Eberron. And the Far Shifter and Captain with the Far Shifter amenity now offer to take players to Three Barrel Cove. Yeehaw. Like that. Druid and Fire Water Elementals have been buffed. Casting penalties to other damage types have been reduced to only the opposing type, and the bonus for the corresponding element has been increased. And I'm not going to read the text for all of that. Healing amplification is going to be additive rather than multiplicative, which we've talked about on the show before. Basically making it similar to ranged and melee range and spell power. I think the more you get, the less effective it is. Repair amplification and negative energy healing will also work in the same manner.
It is, but realistically, unless you are a build that was going 100% for healing amp, 95% of the population is going to get buffed by the current healing amp changes. It's those weird ones that we're trying to stack, Pally and half-elf, or Pally, human, and monk together and do crazy stuff with cure serious bots.
I think they said that the kind of cutoff point was like 240% healing application. If you made it that far,
about 250, which 250 is about where, I hate to use the term, a good build will stop usually. Anything above that is usually you're giving up way too much DPS and survivability for it. But if you're building a solid, balanced build, 250 is about as high as you typically would go.
Right. Some enhancement news. They fixed they now have a different animation with smiting to give it a faster effect. Barbarian enhancement trees are being revamped, which we've talked about before. I'm not going to go through those. Let's see. They fix an issue that could cause the Divine Crusader Epic Destiny tree not to appear after spending points in an enhancement tree, which is kind of a weird one. Legendary Dreadnought's Master's Blitz benefit now starts with 3 stacks instead of 1. And Fury of Wild Adrenaline's benefit has been reverted to the pre-update 23 functionality, dealing damage as a percentage instead of adding melee and range power, which I thought was kind of strange, and I'm not really sure why they're doing that.
The big reason on that one is there's a lot of abilities, not a lot, there's a few abilities in the new Barbarian tree and a few other places that are based on melee power. So you can hit Adrenaline and heal for 2,000 hit points, basically. There's a few other key cases. By reverting it back, it should take out a little bit of the lag that's supposed to be happening between the hit of Adrenaline and the attack, but also it stops some of the abuse that could happen with new Barbarian abilities.
Yep, so... well, if Barbarian can heal himself for 2,000, I don't know. Anyways.
It's a minor issue, but if they want to do more and more things with melee power in the future, it could cause problems. They want Adrenaline to be a damage-dealing ability, not necessarily general purpose.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see. There's a lot of fun stuff in here. This is going to be less fun, though. Anniversary cards and future card recipes are now linked to their events, which means that the recipes created by combining various cards will only be available when the event is active. Anniversary cards can no longer be used to make anniversary card recipes once Update 24 hits. So
that is some serious BS. If people
you're giving us like a month and a half worth of notice here, just
still.
But it's nuking it from orbit. They can't fix the problem. And they don't want to ban half to 3/4 of the player base, so they're just nuking it from orbit.
Well, it's easy. You don't have to ban them. They can figure out who's abusing the system, and just go in there and remove all their cards. You can't do what you don't have.
Yeah, somebody's gonna hand them to you. But either way, they've after the last Palooza, I don't know, a year ago, when they went through and had to log into people's characters individually, they don't have the manpower for that. And it's been out for a year. I mean, I get it. It's kind of annoying because you got to make decisions now, but
right. And the thing is,
it's been abused.
It has been abused, but in my personal case, I haven't used nearly any of my anniversary cards, and it's more due to an inventory space issue.
I hear you.
Why use all those cards up that fit nicely into one inventory slot to chew up my entire inventory page with the stacks of stuff I'm going to get from it?
Not disagreeing in the least. There's also the hoarder effect. I know I'm horrible for having consumables like that and going, well, I don't want to really use it because I might not get it back again. And
then how often are they going to turn the anniversary event back on?
Probably once a year for the anniversary.
It's an anniversary event. That would seem to work.
You would think, but that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, use your anniversary cards before Update 24 comes out.
Right.
I would say you probably have at least a month, so there's not a need to go running scared crazy now, but use them up. Jerry did come on and say as well, he suggested not throwing away the bag or the card cruncher or the die roller. Less because that they're planning on using it, more from a just-in-case standpoint. Which is usually pretty good advice. Which only takes up one inventory slot, which is 200.
It takes up 2 inventory slots.
If you pull your die roller out, you can't put it back. So leave it in there if it's still in there.
There's that.
Otherwise, it's 2.
I'm going to assume that if they bring the anniversary card back, you'll get a new one.
I'd hope so, but it's Durbin.
And they'll probably change the recipes. Having
Yeah.
said that, you might want to hang on to them if you can. But use the cards. It doesn't sound like there's any benefit.
No.
If you use them now, you know you get to use them. If you save them, you have to wait until maybe they turn them on again.
And I doubt they will. It'll probably be new cards in the future.
Yeah. However, you might save one of each just because you like to if you're a collector. But anyways, that's what they have in anniversary cards. So make sure you use them before Update 24 hits. I need to figure out what I'm going to use my 2s for, because raid bypass timers and XP pots use the same card.
Oh yes.
That's if there were 2 things I wanted to make, if I just had to like default and dump a bunch of cards into something, those would be the 2 things. And they're the same. And even Slayer pots are used the 2 as well. So if anyone wants to trade their 2s to me, let me know. We can work some out. You might even get me to trade you 2 for 1. Anyways, along with that, Festival cookies have had their usual adjustments for 2014. They even actually told us, which is kind of crazy. Lord of Blades cookie now has Blade Barrier, which usually has been the Merilith cookie in the past. Well, I think it might have been something else as well. The Merilith cookie has Burning Blood. Suleimani's cookie now has Teleport and can be used in public spaces. That's kind of a weird one.
Well, that's a nice change.
Yes.
Um,
I'm not gonna. That's a pretty nice one there. You might carry 2, just because you might fail. Fun fact: if you do fail a teleport, you can actually land without dying. Because you end up falling towards the marketplace, and if you reach a certain point, you die. But if you kind of push against the northeast section of if you fall in the kind of an invisible box or chimney, if you kind of push towards the northeast section, you can get out of it before you die. The Warforged Titan cookie now has Titan's Grip, and the Web cookie now has a Rejuvenation Cocoon. Yeehaw!
Yeah, both of them are nice to come back. Titan's Grip is nice to come back after, 2 years of being out?
Something like that.
Something that's about right.
I don't know, I'm terrible at using my cookies, so...
Yeah, I have tons and tons of cookies from like 2-3 years ago.
The spell ones are nice when you're at lower levels, but like at level 7, they kind of start ceasing being useful, at least for an Epic Elite. Players can now unlock the ability to use Harper Enhancement Tree through the acquisition of 310 Harper Favor. Yeah. The Heroic Durability's descriptive text now say the feat provides 30 hit points rather than 25. Field Mastery and Improved Shield Mastery no longer function with orbs. Oops.
Sucks.
I don't think it was ever intended to do that. Let's see, in the Hall of Heroes, there's a whole lot of stuff in the Hall of Heroes, which is kind of crazy.
I just want to know who found that bug and what were they thinking? If you're using an orb, why the hell do you have that feat in the first place?
Swashbuckling Bard, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would be my orbs. Let's see. Hall of Heroes. There's a whole bunch of stuff with the Hall of Heroes, which is kind of fun. There's now an entrance to the Eberron Marketplace to the right of the entrance where players enter the Eberron Hall of Heroes from the character selection screen. So they moved that. There is now a Stormreach teleporter across from the location where players enter the Hall of Heroes. So you can kind of go somewhere faster from that. There's an airship access point next to the that teleporter in the Eberron Hall of Heroes. And there's now an exit to Evening Star to the right of the entrance where characters enter the Forgotten Realms Hall of Heroes. Basically, access. You can now also exit to Evening Star from the Hall of Heroes, either to the Evening Star Cavern, Wayloon, or Thunder Peaks. And there are now bankers, auctioneers, general vendors on the upper floor of both Hall of Heroes, as well as a fate spinner. So, yeehaw.
So they're making the Hall of Heroes easily accessible and, able to get out of it really quick. But when, for the love of God, are they going to add airship towers to all the places the airship drops you off?
They're adding one to Three Barrel Cove, and they're adding one to the Forgotten Realms Hall of Heroes. So,
Right.
Meridia would be nice.
yeah,
Anywhere the airship goes, where do they drop you off when you get there? They just push you off the gangplank?
Of course. Why not? Geronimo.
if you're lucky, they give you a parachute.
Featherfall.
Hireling custom menu now has an active and passive categories for actions. Here's a fun one. Drop rates of items in many quests have been increased, including the Animus Rune Arm from Devil's Assault, the Mad Loop, and the Mysterious Bible from Weapon Shipment. Yay. Drop rates for named items in the Sands of Minaktarin, the landscape.
So if you want your Bloodstone, now you can finally get it.
And your Ring of Spell Storing, and your Mysterious Bubble. Items in the actual desert quests have been increased on Elite and Epic difficulties. Druid's Deep items, High Road, Giant Hole, Disciples of Shadow, Wayloon Quest Chain, optionals in the Stormhorns, Brothers of Forge and Study and Sable, Haunted Halls.
Really? In Haunted Halls? I've not had any problem getting anything in there.
I'm just reading it. Cormyrian items in the Evening Star Challenge chest, King's Forest items. I guess are there King's Forest items? I thought they were all just commendations. Oh, I guess there's a few. There's the Grave Wrappings. Yeah, there's a few. Underdark quest name items, Demon Web quest name items, Evening Star commendations. Let's see. Combinations from the King's Forest, Underdark, and Demon Web quests no longer overlap with. The combinations no longer overlap with named item drops, making it more likely to get an item or combinations. Oops.
Wait, does that mean you can get both now? If you're lucky?
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially.
Web of Chaos quest named items have been increased on Elite and Epic Elite difficulties. Drop rates of Secrets of Artificer quest named items have been increased slightly on Normal and Elite, but not hard. Red Fens, Elephant Cabal, Zorian Cipher, Invaders, Garamol's Chest in the Subterranean, and the Restless Isles. If you haven't farmed some of the items because they were really hard to get, yeehaw! Of course, who knows? Maybe they upgraded it by 2%. I don't know.
Now, they say drop rates on items in the Restless Isles. I'm assuming that means the wilderness type area and not the actual quests.
No, I think it means the intent was also the quest. So, you want your Royal Guard mask? Go farm for it now.
Or your Ring of the Ancestors.
Yep.
Yeehaw. So that's a lot. That's a pretty big list at several different levels. And some of them I wouldn't have really said that was a problem. Although maybe that's because I wasn't necessarily looking for a lot of those items. I don't know. I'm surprised by the 100 halls. I mean, I just ran that this morning, and we got 3 items out of the chest on hard. So
I've gotten 1 or 2 items on every single run I've done in there.
You're probably the exception to the rule.
That's probably an exception, but that one surprised me too a little bit. The other ones, they were kind of making the epic items that were made obsolete by the last update drop easier, but Haunted Hall still has some good stuff in there yet, so.
I'm still happy about the Mysterious Bobble and Weapon Shipment. Yay.
Yeah, I farmed 3 of those things out the hard way.
Let's see, what else is going on? There's now a visible third buff icon for Greater Heroism spell that shows the fear immunity effect of the spell, which I heard was broken, but I never really bothered to check. The UI panel.
Yeah, there was a problem if you had a permanent GH item and you cast a spell on yourself. So it's always been the pots and the items didn't give you fear immunity, but the spell did. If you cast the spell and get your 10 hit points, as soon as those 10 hit points went away, the item permanent effect, like Boots of the Innocent, would take over, and it would remove your fear immunity, which really sucked. So hopefully this fixes it.
That would be a problem. There's some UI panel stuff that got changed. The social panel now defaults to the guild tab after initial login.
Okay. Maybe that's just to speed loading time?
Yeah, so the part that goes with that is the looking for group panel now loads groups upon initial opening. So when you go to there, it'll load the groups. So that's why they're defaulting you on the guild page so it doesn't automatically load. they're probably also trying to talk you into getting into a guild, which, hey, you should. Guilds are great. Make your own if you don't have one. See, Double Shot has been added to the character sheet. Yay.
But it's useful. But
There's so many other things I'd rather see on there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not important, but that whole thing needs an overhaul. I'd like to know where I'm getting all my skill modifiers from, for one.
And let's see. I copied the part. They made a separate announcement about the anniversary cards, and I'll just kind of skim through. So when it's updated, when Update 24 is released, the cards will no longer be able to be used in the Eldritch Card Cruncher, although any leftover cards can be added to your image gallery. If you still have any leftover cards from the anniversary event, please make sure to claim them before Update 24. The message is aimed at letting people know that they should use their 8th anniversary cards prior to the release of Update 24 if they want to get the benefits. This is from Jerry. I would recommend holding on to your bag, box, and dice, at least for now. That said, if there is a 9th anniversary event or some such thing in the future, it will likely not use the same cards as the 8th anniversary event. There you go. That's the news. So Update 24 is coming. Sounds like there's some fun stuff going on. Bonus days for the week, double combinations of Valor and plus 20% crafting XP through November 16th. You guys think there's really much... What's Kenneth crafting, in your view, at this point? Useful? Not so useful?
It's still very useful for low levels, and if you're doing some TR Twink gear, but
that's about it.
That's it. It needs some love. Whenever I see the 20% XP for crafting or the crafting ingredients on sale, I just chuckle, going, "Guys, update the system first."
Yeah.
Plus 6 tomes were extended through Sunday, November 16th because of an error with intelligence tomes. You can get 20% or 25% off of character slots, questing tools, healing items, and SP potions until Thursday, November 20th, as well as a free 25 stack of plus 25 crafting boosters with the code 1CSB13. Get one per account.
So does anybody else find it humorous that character slots are 25% off at the same time that they trying to shut the bag off? So need inventory space, buy a character slot, and put your bag items there.
There you go.
Time to put on the tinfoil hats, folks.
That's just marketing and the devs talking to each other.
Man, if they this was a suggestion from a player a long time ago, but someone suggested adding a tinfoil hat cosmetic elm.
Oh, I'd buy that.
I'm sure so many people would buy that. It would be kind of amusing, actually. You get some great screenshots with something like that, too. Let's see, 118th Chronicle. The Measurement Guild is a new player-run website looking at numbers and systems in DDO. The Order of Syncletica took an in-depth look at the Poison Master build. So if you want to kind of see how they made that Poison Master build, you can do that. The Crimson Blade Company are a role-playing guild on Sarlona looking for new players. The guild focuses on Eberron lore and hosts dungeon-mastered events to advance the guild's story. The guild is looking for laid-back role players of all experience levels. You can, if you're into role-playing, you can go there. How many adventurers would it take to best a Merilith in an arm wrestling contest? Andy, go.
One barbarian.
Steiner?
Trick question. You couldn't get close enough and stay on your feet to beat her.
I would say 3 for the arms and 1 for the tail. Fansite news. There's a lot of fansite news going on these days. Your DDO is having a holiday giveaway. We had our Guild Feud episode last week. I'll talk about that in a minute. DDO Players News had their 7th episode on that podcast. DDO Gamer was talking about Update 24 news. Enrique was looking at various clans and factions of Gnolls. And the Damsels of DDO is a new live stream and podcast, which we'll talk about in a minute. There was a community update video, and there was it's pretty much we've covered everything in there already. There was a weekly Wednesday, Fresh in the Air, Red Fang, and Proof of the Poison is what he ran this week. And Fall Fling ran Diplomatic Impunity and Framework. Here's an update on where the Twitch stream is, because there's a lot of people using the official Twitch stream now. There's Minion Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. DDO with C. Morigu at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. Wednesday, of course, has the weekly Wednesday and the Fall Fling, as well as Grizzlies Grind at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thursday is the DDO Guys from 9 to 11. And Saturdays is Saturday Raid Night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with the Blue Queen. Additionally, there's the new Damsels of DDO stream, which is, I believe, 2 a.m. Eastern Time, so really early, as well as possibly another one coming as well. So there's a lot of streaming going on right now. And I think with that, the Damsels of Distress is a new one, and it's being run by Lessa. So of course she sent me a commercial, which will give you a little bit more of an idea of what is going on with that. So here you go. Here's her commercial.
From the DDO Cocktail Hour, and I invite you to join me along with Mithery and Saba Jade for a brand new Twitch live stream / podcast where we play DDO and try not to make fools of ourselves. We've called ourselves the DDO Damsels, and the DDO
DDO.
Wait, excuse me, what?
We agreed we call the show Damsels of DDO.
I don't have any memory of that.
Oh, well, that's because your memory...
I have the memory of a goldfish, I know.
Hey, no picking on goldfish. Studies have shown they can remember things from months, so technically your memory is a bit worse than that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Fish. I have some of those. Pause the commercial, guys. I need to go get some water.
No, stop. Mithery, no. People do not go get things while they're doing a commercial. They do the commercial, and then Mithery, hello. She's gone.
Yeah, right, water. If you can't tell, we're going to do a Twitch feed called Damsels of DDO every Tuesday at 11 p.m. Pacific Time.
Join us November 25th for a late-night live stream.
Okay, I'm back with my water. What'd I miss?
You missed the whole freaking commercial, okay? The whole commercial. That's it. We're done. Say goodbye now.
Goodbye now.
There you go. So, Damsels of DDO, brought to you by Lessa and Saba and Mithery. And they had the first episode, which I believe was two forms. So they were on the Twitch feed, and then they kind of did a little podcast after that as well. And we'll link to them in the show notes. You can find them on the Cocktail Hour website there. Did you want to comment on that, Steiner Davion? I know you commented about that earlier.
Anything with Lessa in it gets my automatic 2 thumbs up.
There you go.
If you know what I'm talking about.
Oh. The Cannon High Rollers are doing a festival giveaway, which they do, I think, pretty much every year. They will be doing several rounds of the giveaway, and we'll link to their post in the forums for that as well. See, as well as that, Jerry is doing Movember this year again, and you can get some fun prizes from there, which we talked about last week. And I think last I checked, there were about $750 out of $1,000 was his goal. So he's doing pretty well. So please continue to support Jerry and the Turbine team for Movember. The other contest that was going on was our DDOcast Guild Feud. And thanks to everyone for playing. The results have been posted. Bobino won the play-at-home version with 188 points. B-Dog came in second with 180, and Rich came in with 172 for third. The Turbine Point winners were Clyde, Furion, and Meth, and Lightbear, and then Sir, Skunk, Wizenman, Tim, Naruda, and Emmers all won Owlbears as well. So congratulations, guys. Thanks for playing. If you want to look at the results, I will link to that in the show notes. Put it on the forum so you can kind of see what the top ones for each of the different questions were, as well as kind of the top scores. I only posted people who scored above 100, so I didn't post everybody, and I didn't post every answer to the questions. I just kind of posted the more popular ones.
Oh, so that was a lot of fun. It was a good idea there, Patrick.
It was a nice little distraction, and I hope people enjoyed the show itself. I may or may not do that again. If you want to see another guild feud, send me lots of encouraging emails to do it, because it was a lot of bookkeeping. It was fun, though, and I'm glad it turned out well. With that, that's enough news. Let's talk about Zerging. And we're going to start. I'm just going to open this up and let these guys talk for a little bit. We'll start with a simple thing. What is Zerging?
Oh.
Running through a dungeon as fast as humanly possible, skipping anything that's not essential. It's basically the antithesis of smelling flowers.
Anything you want to add, Andy?
Efficiently completing the quest in a quick manner. So
Okay.
it's not as fast as humanly possible, because as fast as possible, a lot of times these people are dead, and you start taking death penalties. But it's as fast as you're able to handle.
Apparently, you don't run with me then.
I think that kind of be the two kind of opposing viewpoints. Some people would consider it going just really, really fast, as fast as you can. Other people just kind of use the term to indicate that they're moving a little faster than you normally would.
Yeah. It's really just not stopping to like look in every corner, smash every breakable, do every objective. It's just getting through the quest.
Yeah, I agree within reason. I put the efficiency clause on there because we'll go through and we'll Zerg XP quests and we'll still hit breakables on the way. But it doesn't slow down completion at all because the team breaks up and somebody in the team is taking care of breakables. Someone in the team's, opening up doing the 2 traps that gets us a bonus for that or whatever. Well, the overall completion time of the quest is still as fast as humanly possible, basically.
Yeah,
But
it's
it really
just
depends on your crew.
yeah. You're not going into every nook and cranny of the dungeon.
No, only ones that give benefit.
Yeah.
I think we can agree that the idea of Zerging is you're going to move faster.
Yes.
You're going for speed. That's kind of your primary goal. You're not really going necessarily for. I mean, you might be going for loot or XP is kind of the side effect, but the goal is not to spend a lot of time learning the quest and figuring out the finer details. It's get through it as fast as possible. Like we want to get in, get out, move on. That's kind of how I can think about it.
I almost want to say that it's an offshoot, or it led to that whole XP per minute craze. They almost go hand in hand, though not necessarily.
Sometimes people are Zerging for a time, like they're going for a time achievement, particularly with raids. You see that a lot with Mark and Death right now. People are trying to see how fast they can get this down. When Shroud was kind of still maybe a little past, it wasn't quite the end game anymore, but it was still kind of being run a lot. We would do what we called Shroud speed runs. Actually, the Damsels of DDO were talking about this. How fast can we get the Shroud done? Because we wanted the completion, but it was like we didn't want to spend a half an hour on there, so we would get it down to like 9 or 10 minutes, depending on how. I think we actually managed to get a 9-minute elite run when cap was still 20.
Yeah, I could be splitting hairs here, but I would put a little bit of a difference between what you mentioned there. You mentioned speed runs. When you're trying to do a raid or a difficult quest, there isn't really any of those, but a raid or something like that and as fast as possible, I call it a speed run. Versus Zerging is, geez, I've done this a million times already. Let's just get this thing done.
Yeah, that's a fair distinction.
Errors, but
I'm okay with that. So let's talk about that. What are some tips you guys have for picking up the pace, getting through quests at a faster clip?
Number one, be self-sufficient.
You want to explain that a little bit more?
Healing pots, buff pots, or cure pots, remove disease, curse, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, curse, disease, poison, restoration, blindness. If you're not carrying that, you don't want to be doing this because no one's going to be watching your back. Actually, to be honest, if you're not Zerging, no one's going to be throwing those stuff on you. Carry your pots.
Yeah, I mean that's good advice regardless. But how does that speed you up?
Well, it lets you
It may not be too obvious for everybody.
It lets you take care of all those ailments, whether it's a lack of hit points or you're cursed or diseased or whatever. Got a couple negatives to your stats while you're moving through the dungeon, instead of standing there having someone cast a spell on you or whatever. You're just constantly moving forward while taking care of the things you need to take care of on your character.
I think it's worth noting too that you're probably going to get spread out particularly if, as Andy was talking about earlier, you might have someone doing a couple people doing different roles, which we'll talk about as well in a minute. But
let me talk about that one actually. Pat. Let me catch you on that one because I actually have 3 rules of Zerging, and I guess 4 if you count the 4th rule is that when you're good enough you can break the rules. But the base 3, if we're talking about generalize, so I did some thinking on this. Don't bite off more aggro or dungeon lore than you can chew. Stay with the party, and I'll explain that there because typically when I see folks die while Zerging, especially if it's an LFM, it's because they fall behind. And it's the guy that falls behind that has the whole dungeon hit him. The person that's ahead Zerging doesn't have to worry about stuff for the most part because they're Zerging through it. This person is slow that gets killed. And the last one is critical. It's knowledge. You need to know the quest, the mobs in the quest, what your tune can do, what you can handle. For instance, you might Zerg through a dungeon and get a dread alert, and that's okay because you know that you can stop and clear the room very quickly. You got energy bursts, dragon breath ready to go, a bunch of cleaves, whatever. But if you don't know your tune, you don't know the quest, you don't know the mobs, you're going to have problems Zerging.
I would say, just to jump in really quick,
yeah.
Sometimes it's the guy that's Zerging and is running ahead that gets into more trouble than the guy that's fell behind. I would say it's usually whichever one is not with the party, right? It's
yes.
If the party's Zerging, it's the guy who's behind. If the party's not really Zerging, it's the guy in front that usually is the one that's going to die.
That's the don't bite off more aggro than you can chew.
Yeah. It goes to that whole don't split the party concept. If you haven't heard the song, I totally suggest you look it up. Never split the party.
Unless, I mean, as I said, if you're with a group that you know and you can do good teamwork,
yeah.
You can. But once you get the first 3 down, you'll know when to use the 4th rule, which is when you're good enough, you can break all those rules. But
there's some quests like
problems, yeah.
There's some quests like spies. There's traps behind that are kind of off the way, or you kind of end up leaving the trapper behind to get the bonus while everyone else runs ahead, and the trapper finishes about the time the front runner gets to the end of the quest. So.
And if you are going to be, jumping off away from the party to take care of something, make sure you know what they're doing with the mobs between you and them, because a lot of times in Zerging, they just bypass mobs. They'll just run by them until the mob gives up chasing them, and then you go to catch up to the party, and bam, there's a whole room full of mobs that you now have to deal with solo.
Correct.
And you give an alert, and everyone in front of you is kind of. But yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. This is kind of one of my main points is what do you actually need to kill in dungeons? Because there's a lot of stuff that you can run by. Whether that be you're talking about know what they're doing with the mobs. So a lot of times people will use invisibility and run past some stuff, which is good to know. I'll say there's a lot of mobs that you don't necessarily need to deal with. You can just kind of leave them there, even if they're out on you. They can leave there. Skeleton archers are probably the most indicative, the best example of that, because skeleton archers,
turrets is what they are.
Yeah, they don't move for the most part. They just stand there and shoot at you no matter where you are.
And they've got a ton of hit points, so killing them's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. I know, like in Wiz King, Tomb of Lizard King, I'll see that with. Again, we're all we've been playing this game for a long time. You'll hear us say occasionally, we know when you're new. And this is one of the things, like when I'm running Wizard King, I know I'm running with someone who hasn't done this much before because he stops and tries to kill the archers in there, which have a bunch of hit points. They got more hit points than pretty much everything else in the dungeon other than the name stuff. And you don't really have to deal with them because you can run past them. Now again, this comes back to knowledge. You know what you actually need to kill. If you see a skeleton archer, you probably don't need to kill it unless it's one of the lockout rooms. There's a bunch of those. I think if you had to go through all the quests in the game, you would probably find more doors that are locked to you until you kill an entire room in undead dungeons than any other type of dungeon in the game. Pretty much probably the most prevalent place of that.
I agree with that statement. I'm thinking through the quest, but I think that's a true statement.
I mean, Galera comes to mind. There's a lot of that.
That's the first one that came to mind.
Yeah.
Galera's Part 1.
I'm pretty much ignored to the point where I only kill skeleton archers if I gotta kill them to get through the door. Otherwise, they leave me. They don't follow you. It's not necessarily true of other archers. Usually, other mobs in the game have other attacks, so they'll try and follow you. But I think actually, technically, the archers in Mark of Death kind of function in the same manner. They don't move, except very rarely, just like
When you
skeleton
blind
archers.
them. If you're dealing with them appropriately, you're blinding them. They're all over the place. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you kind of leave them be, now you can't really ignore them because they're on the same platform as you. You're not moving past them, but it's the same principle. They're not really moving around.
Well, in that case, just as a public service announcement, don't ignore the archers in Mark of Death. Every second that ticks by, they get a bonus to their range power and their fort bypass, and especially on the harder difficulties, but even normal. If you leave them be for long enough, they will start insta-killing the party.
They were. I was actually running a couple of those earlier, and it took me about a minute to figure out why the Death Knight was hitting me so hard. And then I realized it wasn't the Death Knight; it was the archer shooting at me.
Yep.
At which point, improved precise shot came in very handy. But anyways, that's getting a little off topic. So archers are things that you don't generally need to kill. Are there any other monsters that kind of jump out at you guys that are good ones to avoid killing? Just run past them.
It depends on the quest. I don't think it's a monster specifically, but you think Fawn 1. You can invis past the entire front part of that quest and get right to the arena outside of one fight. In that case, it's all the mobs that are there. But it's a quest by quest. I think the only thing that's probably holds a rule would be the Skeletal Archers. Everything else, either you're able to zerg past it or you should kill it. It's case by case.
I almost want to say, it's in a lot of quests, if there's like scorpions and bats, I don't think they follow you as much as a more intelligent mob might. So you could leave those behind, particularly since they're a little bit on the slower side.
It then depends on the quest. Like if you're zerging through Cold Chamber, I mean, they can add to red DA really quickly, which can cause problems. So throwing a quick cleave on them and watching them all die and then moving forward is not a horrible idea.
But if you're dealing in that quest with a lot of the scorpions in there, then you don't know what you're doing because you can avoid spawning those by avoiding stepping on certain portions of the terrain.
No, agreed. Fire elementals might get in that same category. Now that I'm thinking about it, in most cases, fire elementals you could probably zerg past.
I would say the same thing would be true if you run into any water elementals.
Yeah, and I think that the air elementals just suck. Just kill them.
Yeah, and earth elementals, game's what, almost 9 years old now. The earth elementals will like earth grab you from the beginning of the quest, and you're at the end fight.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that they've never really been able to fix consistently. It always seems to rear its ugly head every now and then.
Yeah, I'd say it's even the water elementals is a good point because in what was it, Into the Deep or in the Red Fens? I mean, those are basically mobile traps, anyways. You don't want to kill them; they're just to be avoided.
They have a ton of hit points too.
Yep.
That was kind of the thing. Like a lot of times we look for things that have a large amount of hit points that we kind of want to avoid killing because it just takes too long to kill them. And if there's only a couple of them, they're not that big of a deal to deal with. And you can assign a kiter to them or something like that. It's not a Zerging scenario, but you see that with the Klujargs in Temple of Deathworm. It's funny that we're kind of pulling this into raids. The Klujargs in Temple of Deathworm, we like to call them the boneheads on Kyber. They have a lot of hit points. They're a pain in the butt, and they just keep respawning. So instead of killing them over and over again, we just have one person kite them.
Respawning red names is stupid. Let me just say it.
That's fair.
Also, if it's a named creature, it should have a name.
Anyways, so kind of along those lines, the next thing I kind of wanted to focus on is going to get how to deal with mobs specifically. What I call kill zones. We were talking about bats and scorpions, and they're a really great example. Casters love to do this. You run past a bunch of stuff, it all starts following you, and you get to a certain point, and you just kill it all there, right? You don't have to have a caster to do that, but that really can speed up your quest time. It also save a lot of spell points too as a caster. because you basically create this big nasty kill zone. And you can drop things like symbols of death, firewalls, acid storms, whatever. You're getting a lot more bang for your buck out of that, but you're also not stopping in as many places to fight, which can really kind of pick up your pace a lot in that regards. Just again, be careful. You don't bite off more than you can chew.
Right. Having the right tools for Zerging is important, and the biggest one I think you just hit on is area of effect spells. That can handle quite a bit of the stuff that you pull, over a good portion of the quest into that one area.
And you can, if you're doing that too, you can use certain spells while you're kind of setting it up, right? Like an implosion or a will banshee, fire and forget spells. That's kind of what are good for while you're running past stuff. Anything that you can shoot off really quick, that'll do some damage, or maybe even insta kill stuff. That you don't necessarily need to pay a lot of attention to that mob specifically, as you kind of build up your mob train, as it were, into a kill zone, which can help you keep down your alerts so you can get a few more mobs and kind of build it up and then just go to town.
Yeah, learn how to cast while moving without being slowed down.
Jump casting, yeah.
Yep.
If you play a caster, you should practice jump casting until you can do it in your sleep. It's just even if you're not Zerging, it's just something that you should. It's a skill that you need to have.
Zerging techniques kind of help with raids, but yeah, jump casting in raids is almost essential, depending on what you're doing. The other thing with mobs that I kind of put in here is leapfrogging. So rather than what this is instead of having everyone stop at the same mob, which one or two people can handle no problem, you can kind of leapfrog groups of mobs. So one person you can tell it they've already got this group handled. You just kind of go on to the next group. And the reason why that speeds you up is because you're not stopping as much, right? You kind of keep a little bit more momentum going. Again, you got to be careful. You don't split up the party too much. You don't bite off more than you can chew. Know where the big mobs are. Know where the lockout points are.
Yeah.
And be aware that if you've got a mob that you've aggroed on and somebody's hitting on it, it's just going to annoy your party. Don't be kiting a mob around.
I think we should. So I just kind of thought of it and threw it out there, kind of as a throwaway comment. We should really mention this. Know where the lockout points are, because if you're Zerging and you run into a lockout room and you're the only one in there, everyone else has to wait for you to kill it or for the door to open. Whereas if you'd have waited 10 seconds, everyone else would have gotten in the room with you. You'd get through it a lot faster.
Right.
Just something to think about.
Even more of a thing for raids where you lock the whole party out of the raid. In some cases.
Yeah.
That's never good.
The one of the big lockout points. There's two that come to mind, and I wouldn't necessarily call them lockout points per se, but there's in the Rainbow of the Dark and Wiz King, there are a couple traps, I guess, if you will, that if you're Zerging through and you don't pay attention to where you're moving to, you end up in a room all by yourself that has no way out until you kill all the mobs in there. And you don't necessarily want the party to follow you in there. There's
a few, like in Wiz King, there's a few places where the doors will close on you. You have to kill a couple golems.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, but that's 2 or 3 mobs. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're not prepared for it because you were Zerging and you're blasting through it pretty quick, it'll either slow you down or get you killed.
Yeah, but in Wiz King, because usually that one everybody splits up anyways. You're never gonna have more than one person with you, so.
Yeah, but just you gotta be careful where you step.
Yeah, just be aware.
Do you guys have any more tips on how to deal with monsters specifically before we talk about other stuff?
I guess the big one is like I said, if you've got a wizard that has AoE, or you got some cleaves, or you've got anything, I guess, that can do AoE, that's a great solution. If you don't, invisibility comes in pot form, it comes in clicky form, in scrolls. Just don't run into the mobs and you won't get their aggro.
You can find it on wands. You can't buy it as wands, but you can also find it on wands.
Yeah, but it's a level 2 spell. It's easy to scroll cast even on the lowest UMD tune out there. So
Right. That being said,
something that everybody should be able to do it. Yeah.
that being said, the recent changes in stealth may hinder that a little bit.
You got to make sure you don't run into the mob. The recent changes, if you physically run into the mob, they're going to notice you. But if you can navigate your tune around the mob or jump over their heads, you're fine.
It should be noted too, when you're talking about invisibility, certain mobs can see right through stuff like that. Some because they have true sight or see invisibility. Others like spiders and vermin can oftentimes just know that you're there through other senses. So just kind of be aware. Oozes, which don't have eyes, can find you anyways. Just kind of be aware of that stuff as well. I would say, kind of as a transition point, there's a lot of places where there's a group of mobs protecting a lever or a door or something like that. My general rule of thumb and tactic is go for that first if you can to open it up, because the thing that's preventing you from moving on is not necessarily the mobs, but it's the closed door or the lever that you need to pull. So try and pull those as quickly as possible. Now, like when you first encounter mobs, if you get right on that lever, a lot of times you can actually sneak in, or the door, you can sneak in the opening because they're not quite ready for you yet. The other thing you can do is you can target it, and as you start using it, you have the use bar, and if you get interrupted in there, you have to start over. You have to be in range at the beginning and the end, but you don't have to be in the middle. So what you can do is you can kind of, as you're approaching it, start your jump, start using it, you actually go out of range of it, and then drop back into range and finish using it. And what that does is, particularly with archers, they have a tendency to miss you more often just because they're trying to hit you as you're moving up and down, or kind of left to right even.
Yeah, I agree, but I think anybody that can pull off that maneuver probably doesn't need the help on Zerging. It's a relatively advanced jump move.
Hey, fair point. However, you may not think of that, as a newer player. We're trying to give tips to everybody, even some older players.
Exactly.
Know that. So it is an advanced maneuver because it's really timing critical, because you have to start jumping before you start using it. Otherwise, your jump will interrupt you.
Right.
But it gives you I would say it probably increases your success rate by about 75%, depending on how many things are shooting at you. I use it all the time.
It does help quite a bit. Having displace or blower up also just adds to that. So if you don't get hit, you'll finish the use.
I think it kind of highlights that Zerging is what's stopping you from advancing. That's what you want to deal with, right? It may seem like it's the mobs, but really it's the mobs are protecting the levers. So they make it so they can't use the levers. As soon as you can get that lever, boom. If you've got someone who can intimidate, or AoE spells again, you can pull the aggro away from the lever, and you're free. Hey, go hit the lever, because that's what you need to hit to move on, right?
It comes back to knowledge. Yeah. You need, if you're going to be Zerging something, you should know the quest and know that lever is the stopping point, not the mobs.
Yeah.
It's you don't want to Zerg your first time through. Heck, and enjoy it when it comes through. Don't Zerg it.
Yeah. That's a good point too. And I'd also I'd throw in here too, we've had this discussion on several previous casts. I think one of the big keys to Zerging too is some good party communication, particularly if we want to go into the divide and conquer route.
Yeah.
Who's doing what?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's doing what,
Teamwork's critical.
Or in a good example too is the lever or whatever you got to activate to keep moving through. If you're trying to use it and you can't master the jump and use, have someone intimidate for you, so that the aggro comes off of you, goes on to them, and you can buy that little bit of extra time to use that lever.
Yeah, it's kind of humorous though. You read on the forums that everybody sees Zerging and it's like, oh, you're just soloing quests even in a party and it's horrible. But a good Zerging party really is all about teamwork, all about communication, knowing the people in your group's strengths, weaknesses, what they can handle, to do it properly. Which is a good point. If you're putting an LFM up tell the pugger that you're Zerging. Otherwise, there's just going to cause frustration for everybody. But yeah, teamwork's a key point.
Although it is kind of fun to one, totally blow someone's mind about how fast you can actually run a quest, and two, drag them by their heels, kicking and screaming.
Yes.
I have done that occasionally and said, hey, all right, you're totally welcome to come with us. We're gonna move really fast. Just try and keep up. Don't worry too much about other stuff. Just keep up with us. Don't worry about killing stuff. Don't worry about, grab your chest and stuff, but keep up. Speaking of chests, this kind of became really popular with, I think, speed shrouds. Grab your loot and scoot. I think that's a big one. You don't get tied down in a chest. Now it can help, again, some teamwork and communication. It can really help if you know what people are looking for. So if you get to a chest and you know that there's a named item out of there, try and say something before you open the chest. So if someone sees it, they know that you want it, and they can just pass it to you and move on.
Yeah.
Or decide beforehand. I've always said, be careful about telling me, don't tell me at the beginning of a quest, because by the time I get to the chest, I'm probably going to forget, which is not generally actually true. I'll usually remember. But, stuff happens between there, and then you might only be half paying attention, and you might forget. So,
Right.
But you'd be amazed how much time you can lose by stopping in chests and looting and watching what other people loot and seeing if something there is that you want, and then you ask for it, as opposed to, as you're looting, hey guys, I'm looking for X. And people can chime in, and you loot, you move on. Loot and scoot.
Well, that and realize that 90% of the chests out there have nothing but vendor trash in them. So if you're trying to be quick, do you really need the 100 platinum pieces in garbage? Probably not.
Keep a clear inventory. Hey, don't forget to sell and repair too while you're in the town, so you have room to grab stuff. Keep on moving.
And know where the B key is. The loot all button.
Which is right below the reroll with shards, which is annoying.
Right, that's why I use the B key, I think, as the default loot all button.
Oh, okay.
And I've got a hotkey on my mouse that the use interface, so I highlight the chest, press that mouse button, B, and my thumb happens to fall right on that key because it's right above the jump space bar.
You're talking about advanced barriers and stuff? I didn't really know there was a loot all button.
Yeah, either did I, to be honest.
I'll admit it.
Keys, but...
I hit the loot all key, but I know when the chest is coming up, I grab my mouse and put it there, and boom, done. But there's a loot all UI key that you can use to speed things up.
And you can map it to whatever you want.
Yep.
I think the default is B.
So yeah, looting can take up a lot of time. The other thing I think this probably takes up more time than anything else that you can do in a quest, buffing. A lot of parties, you get in the quest and you start buffing, and 5 minutes later you start running the quest. And this is really bad if you have a bard, because the bard's going to sing all 12 of his songs, right? Which, hey, I love bards. I love singing as a bard. I'm not trying to bash bard, but, bards can move and sing. Yeah. You can buff on the go. You don't have to stop, do all the buffs. It's,
not to mention that it extends the life of your buffs. If you wait for 5 minutes to sing all 12 songs, well, that first song is already expiring.
One thing is there's so few buffs that are really, really that needed. And most people, if you should try to be able to self-buff yourself at this point in the game. Outside of freedom of movement, which there are cookies for that too, but outside of that, most of the things you want for a buff, you should be able to have a clicky for, a scroll for, a pot for, something.
Or it comes in a mass version.
Exactly.
When you are buffing, you zone into the quest, drop the masses first, right? Don't start with a single spell stuff, Drop the mass buffs, and then as you're running, you can hit people with a single... the songs are being the exception, right? You can run and sing, because you don't have to have people in as much of a localized area with the mass. When you cast a mass buff, you see the circle drop, and anyone not in that area doesn't get it. So get those off quick so you can really get moving, and then dole out the single spell buffs and the songs on your way because they have a greater area of effect. Those songs, and again, you don't need the skill song generally. You don't need to spend time standing around playing a skill song. I remember
I'm trying to think what song is actually even that valuable anymore. I mean, Inspire Courage at low levels, but other than that,
well, it's damage at any level. Inspire Excellence, which I think is the one that gives you stats, is nice. There's a lot of stuff that's really helpful. But you can sing them as you're going, right?
Right.
You don't have to stay there and sing. I remember really, I think like right after I started doing speed trials, which is really kind of when you start realizing when you're running the way we were running shrouds before we started moving toward speed shrouds. You'd run the first part, hit the shrine, buff. So do the second part, hit the shrine, buff. And suddenly you realize that half the time you're in the quest is spent shrining and buffing. Which I can also throw in here too. You don't have to use every single shrine you come across.
Right.
Don't run out of spell points and become useless because you skipped a shrine. But
yeah, I will say the one song I would like bards to sing first is the spell point discount song if they're a spell singer. If for no other reason, you sing that, all your mass buffs are now cheaper, and you can continue moving on.
The thing is, though, I mean, if you're really zerging through something, are you even waiting at all at the entrance? I mean,
not really.
Yeah.
That's why if you want to sing me a song, catch up.
Yeah, I agree with your point, Steiner. It makes sense if you have time, but
you can also too, like, there's a couple of quests. Even though you're zerging, you're gonna get to certain points where there's expositions where you're gonna get stuck at for a minute. Vaughn 4, there's a little bit of there's some exposition points where you kind of have to wait a little bit. Tower of Despair is a classic one where you gotta wait by a closed door for a minute-long cutscene, minute-and-a-half-long cutscene.
Right.
You don't have to. And there's like 2 mobs between the door and that door, the front door and that door. You just zone in, go kill them, and then start the cutscene. Again, start the things that are going to take time. That don't lock people out, but start the things that take time as soon as you can. Lord of Dust, there's a cutscene in Lord of Dust that has a similar effect as well.
That's a good point. I think the other thing with zerging is being aware of, call them shortcuts. There's a lot of Easter eggs in the quests that the devs put in there that if you pay attention to them, you know where they're at, you can skip quite a bit. Detour is one. You can jump on top of one of the ledges and cut through about half the quest, completely missing it. So if you're really looking for the speed runs, it's being aware of those areas where you can cut through some stuff that, in my opinion, the devs put it in there for a reason. It's just, can you find these kind of little Easter eggs? But will greatly speed things up. But I know it's been a while.
Is another one.
Maze of Madness is one that caused a huge forum uproar, I guess, but whatever. But that's another one that, as long as everybody can handle it, again, knowing your team, it can save a lot of time. If somebody gets lost or falls off, you suddenly take in 3 times as long. But as long as your whole team can handle it, go for it.
I don't think those are necessarily intended. Based on the fact that there was one from Maze of Madness that they actually they took away. They didn't take the other one away, but they took one of them away.
Right.
Although, to be honest, some of the one in Maze of Madness, if you know how to do the doors, like the combinations for the doors,
you don't save much time.
It's not really that much faster.
About 2 minutes. Yeah.
Well, there's Trial by Fury is another good example of.
You can jump past all the portals.
Yeah, you can get creative while you're jumping. I think we kind of covered everything I had about Zerging. Anything you guys want to throw out there before we move on?
It's probably good to know about Dungeon Alert for those that aren't as familiar with it, because it does play an effect in Zerging. We always have a joke internally of, if Dungeon Alert's not red, you're not Zerging hard enough yet. But the effect of Harry is probably a good thing for people to run into. I mean, any dungeon alert above yellow, if a mob swings at you, your speed drops down to very, very little.
And if you're crippled or have any other debuff on you, you don't move.
Yeah. So being aware of that, and either don't get swung at because you're far enough away, or control your dungeon alert. The other one is there's a few mobs, not many, but there's a few mobs in the game, bosses, which have really, really high AC. And typically it's not a big deal. You can still cut through them. But Red Dungeon Alert gives a humongous AC buff to bosses. And you can run into a situation where you're only glancing on them. Sinus is one, actually. That's got a really high AC. And if you run into Sinus after Inferno with a red DA, killing him takes a lot longer than usual because you're glancing all your attacks versus actually landing them.
It should also be noted, too, that if alert is red, at least named bosses don't take weapon effect damage. They only take base weapon damage.
Yes.
Which can really, really reduce your DPS.
So get your dungeon alert down before you fight the end boss, unless you can just overwhelm it.
And I would say red alert is kind of the one exception to the rule of, take out the little stuff first, right?
Yeah.
Because dungeon alert, it doesn't care how tough the mob is. It just cares about the numbers of mobs that are aggroed on you. So if you can cut down the numbers fast, that's more.
I always go by that rule. Kill the little stuff first, regardless of what level your dungeon alert is, because if you have a whole swarm of monsters, right, and you got a couple big tough ones in there, while you're attacking those one or two tough ones, you got the swarm of little guys just pecking you to death. But if you clear out all the little guys, you're only taking a couple of attacks from the big guys, and the little guys will fall by the wayside really fast, and then you can focus on the big guys.
It goes back to knowledge, right? There's certain places where you kind of want to ignore the little stuff because it just keeps respawning and you're just wasting time with it.
There's a difference between respawn and, just...
Yeah, exactly.
And clearing out.
Yeah, if you need to get DA down, it's not a bad strategy, but I don't want to steer someone new in the wrong direction. That the kill order should be casters, trippers, melees, ranged. Now, granted, if Dungeon Alert's red and you just need to kill some stuff, whacking a bunch of kobolds is a great way to pull it down. But
if you're on red alert, it may just be kill what you can reach.
Yes, exactly. But for anybody who's relatively new that might be listening to this, casters, primary target number 1, those that trip, wolves and the like number 2, then your melee and the range next. But it's just in the priority order, which they can screw your party up.
It's a very good tip there. I think it is just to kind of, unless you guys want to throw anything else in before we move on, because I've got a closing statement here.
I was going to say, do we want to talk about how to avoid dying while zerging at all, or do you think we've pretty much covered that?
I kind of threw it in there as a possibility, but I think, don't do stuff that's going to get you killed, because if you're dead, you can't go any faster. So, try to stay alive, as a general rule.
DPS approaches 0 when you're dead.
If you're doing DPS when you're dead, let me in on the secret here, because that's a pretty good trick.
But don't tell the devs, because that sounds like the capital E.
Yes.
Actually, just as a quick aside, back when Sharadi had different effects on it, but we actually party wiped in Epic Elite Fall of Truth, but they had the permanent fire dot on them, both of them did. And we were watching the health bars, and it took about a minute and a half, but we stuck it out because we wanted to see. Literally, we missed succeeding while party wiped by about 10 seconds.
Oh, so close. Just
because the life bars were almost at the right spot, and each one had the permanent fire dot on them. It was pretty, everyone, the first one went down, and everyone held their breath, and then he went down. We're like, did we get it? No. So close. It would have been hilarious.
That would have been worse. Screenshotting.
Oh yeah, that would have been pretty good. Just as a closing thought, as we wrap up the discussion of Zerging, one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to have this discussion is, you don't have to just be a Zerger to use these tips, right? You can cut down on your questing time by using a lot of these tips, like looting and scooting. You don't have to spend all day buffing, using every shrine. those are simple things that you can do that can drastically decrease the amount of time you spend in dungeons, and can really kind of get you moving a little faster. People like questing at different speeds, and that's great. And we're not saying you have to be a Zerger to enjoy this game, but consider using some of these tips. We're applying them towards Zerging, but you can use them even if you're just doing normal non-Zerging questing, right? Learn how to buff on the run and kind of pick up the pace a little bit and see how you can do that. You'd be surprised how much time you can cut out of your normal questing life.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. I think most of the time we run, we kill everything on our path, but we're doing it very quickly.
Yeah, and you're not spending 5 minutes buffing at the beginning of a quest is, to me, it's a little boring.
Boring.
I want to get in there and kill stuff. That's what I'm playing. That's what I'm questing for, is to kill stuff for the most part.
I'm playing a game, and the premise of the game is to run through a quest, kill monsters, and take their stuff.
Yeah.
Get bigger, better, stronger. Wash, rinse, and repeat.
Pretty much.
I'm not playing this game and paying a subscription fee or, spending lots and lots of time to get points to buy the game, to stand around and waste time and not have fun.
It's not to say that buffs aren't important. It's just, challenge your part of this idea of this discussion. Challenge yourself. See how much time you can explore ways that you can cut down on some of your prep time. You'd be surprised.
That, and you don't need every buff in the game. There's only a few that are really, I would say, highly advised. The rest of them, they're just incrementally adding a little bit more power to you.
And know what quest you're in. Some quests you need protection from evil. Some you don't.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll move on to Lightning Post. This comes from Grishnov. What is your favorite solo class and group class? And we'll start with Steiner.
I'm going to say my current favorite solo class is Paladin.
Group class?
I'd probably say Bard or Wizard right now.
Okay. Andy?
For me, I'd say favorites. I have a favorite soul melee caster hybrid. That's probably my favorite solo class right now. Just a lot of fun. As for group, it's Wizard. I mean, it's just so much fun to, as we're talking about Zerging, run past, you hold a bunch of mobs in one room for the rest of the party, you move beyond that, and then you kill the next room.
It's a good example of teamwork.
Yeah.
Doing Zerging. I would say my favorite solo class is probably my Sorcerer. Because he doesn't usually feel like he needs a lot of help. He just blows stuff up, and that's fun. Group class, I'd actually probably go with my Barbarian, because I do actually really like playing my Barbarian. It's just he's not a great solo character. Self-healing is a bit problematic. But I really like playing him because I really like seeing the big numbers from a melee, and he can get some pretty nice big shots in. With that, do you guys want to anything else you guys want to throw in here as we close out? Maybe Twitter handles or anything like that?
If people want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Steiner Davion, just like my name appears here. I sometimes write on DDO Gamer, though not nearly as often as Jeff.
I don't think anyone there writes anywhere near as often as Jeff. Andy, do you want to?
Nothing, to be honest. I too busy between real life to spend time on Twitter.
I realized I wasn't really giving guests the opportunity to do that in case people wanted to follow people. You can follow us at DDOCast. Hopefully, go to DDOCast.com and there's links for like every social media page we have, which thankfully someone else set up for me. So with that, I'm going to say thanks everyone for listening to the show, and thanks to Andy and Steiner for joining me today. Thanks to the other contributors for DDOcast, and thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making DDO and pen and paper. And thanks to Cyber for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you just want to say hi, you can email us at docast@gmail.com. That includes if you have an idea for a topic or a question you want to ask us. We love asking questions, or answering questions, and love ideas for more topics. Believe me, if I was coming up with all these topics, this would be not so exciting of a show. You can also find us on social media, as I was mentioning, and you can follow us there for latest cast updates. The closing tip for the week comes from Propane. Don't forget your supplies. Some potions can be used on other players as well, which is good to note. So with that, until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your tests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to buff on the run.